Welcome to an exclusive Asia Briefing vlog. My name is 𝐤𝐻𝐩𝐫𝐚 and I'll be your host for this clip. Throughout 2022, we're featuring our partner and parent company, Dezan Shira and Associates, as they celebrate their 30th anniversary. Each month, we'll speak to an equity partner, an expert or guest, as they recount the firm's history to present-day story and on-the-ground issues that companies face in today's thriving and rapidly developing Asia. In this clip, we're rejoined by founder and chairman, Mr. Chris Devonshire-Ellis, managing partner, Mr. Alberto Vettoretti, and Vietnam country director, Mr. Filippo Bortoletti, as they discuss the company's entry into Vietnam many years ago. Chris, welcome back. What can you tell us about why Vietnam was selected for entry now almost 15 years ago?
The reasons we looked at Vietnam back in 2008, and our presence there commenced from 2009, so well over a decade ago, was because that we saw that the Asian supply chains were shifting, and the reason for this was because the Chinese manufacturing sector was becoming increasingly expensive. China had embarked on a national policy of increasing worker wage levels consistently since the opening up of the country in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And this had an impact of raising China's employment costs, while other areas, particularly in ASEAN and to some extent India, remained more competitive. That started to become something of an issue for cost-conscious sourcing and manufacturing companies. So we made the decision to look at the Vietnam market because the wage levels in Vietnam at the time were about 25 to 30% less of the applicable wage levels for workers in South and Southwest China. So that's a considerable saving. The downside was that at the time, the Vietnamese productivity levels were not at the same standard of China's. So although there was a profitability gain in having a lower wage overhead, there was a productivity loss because the Vietnamese manufacturing companies were not basically at that same level as China's. So we made a decision to go to Vietnam because, having been in China since the early 1990s, we knew and we had seen in China that productivity gap would decrease, and that would make Vietnam a genuine competitor to China. So we set up our offices in Vietnam, and I have to say that a lot of our then competitors thought we were crazy. We were ridiculed because China was the place to be. Vietnam's productivity wasn't as good. It would take longer. There'd be more defects and these sorts of things. But we realized that with experience and a short amount of time, that productivity gap would close. And that's exactly what happened. So we've now been in Vietnam for more than 15 years. US companies in particular, with the China tariffs imposed under President Trump in 2018, have looking to export products to the US, have decided to relocate there, and that is a good strategy. China now has a rival in Vietnam, not just in size, but also in terms of Vietnam's productivity is almost at the same rate as China's now, yet the wage levels continue to remain competitive. Interestingly, though, this ripple effect, we're starting to see manufacturing operations that went from China to Vietnam now look again at new emerging markets in Cambodia and Laos. So these will be, in coming years, a new frontier. And as I said, we're already seeing Vietnam operations start to relocate to those companies, those countries as well. So that's the reasons why we did that. And I know upcoming, for me, over how this started, but I know that Alberto Vettoretti, the firm's managing partner, will be speaking. He was instrumental in taking the firm into Vietnam. He did a lot of that on the ground work. So he'll be talking about how we did that, the challenges we faced, and tips for companies looking to relocate all or part of their operations from China to Vietnam. So he'll be coming up in a second, together with Filippo, who is our regional director in Vietnam. He'll be discussing the implications of doing business in Vietnam today, the economic outlook, and the opportunities for foreign investors into the market. So, so over to them.
Thank you very much, Chris. I look forward to speaking with Alberto and Filippo about this pivotal stage in Dezan Shira's history.
Thank you.
Hi, and welcome, Alberto. Thank you for making the time to speak with us again today. You entered Vietnam nearly 15 years ago now. At the time, what did you find so compelling about the Vietnam market compared to other market options?
Thanks for having me, Gary, today. When I look back 15 years ago, I was primarily dealing with the manufacturing sector in South China, and in particular, quite a few labor-intensive industries spinning from leather manufacturing into textile and garment manufacturing. At the time, new policies enhanced by the local governments allowed for upgrading of the supply chain, and some of the so-called unfriendly or polluting industries were sort of given a deadline by which they had to look elsewhere in the region or elsewhere. At the same time, clients started to have some cost pressure in terms of labor, salaries gradually increasing and raising throughout the region. There were also some other larger issues in terms of urbanizations of South China, major cities like Shenzhen, Dongguan, Guangzhou, etc., which really naturally pushed some of the companies who had been there previously to look elsewhere in terms of where to move next. At the time, and we were one of the first companies to address the China Plus One strategy back in the old days. We were looking around, and Vietnam, for a number of reasons, ticked all the boxes as far as where next was concerned. And my colleague, Filippo, will certainly touch upon the goods of doing business in Vietnam. But from what I remember back then, there were some very good incentives in terms of tax breaks for moving to Vietnam. Vietnam was starting discussions about some free trade arrangements with neighboring countries and also with other powerhouses and economic blocs. There was a very good environment created by all these industrial parks which mushroomed around the countries and would provide you a lot of good facilitations in terms of establishing business operations. Demographic factor was also quite important. If you were to look at the labor and the working age, it was about 10, 12 years younger than China at the time. So it would, in the years following, certainly benefit by this demographic dividend. Quality of life was very good, ease of travel, visas. So I think Vietnam made lots of sense back then.
In building on that, why did you first select Hanoi to set up in, followed by, as I understand it, Ho Chi Minh City and Da Nang?
Correct. At the time, I was based in South China, shifting in between Shenzhen and Guangzhou. So for me to take a flight to Hanoi, it was just an hour flight across the border. And it was a lot faster to go to Hanoi and even Ho Chi Minh than going to Shanghai, for example. So from a logistic point of view, it was very easy to commute back then. We then realized that really Ho Chi Minh City was the equivalent of what Shanghai is now and was for China. So all the manufacturing, the light manufacturing was taking place down the south. So immediately after Hanoi, we established a branch also in Ho Chi Minh City, which is now having the lion's shares as far as manufacturing enterprises are concerned, and also our operations. Ho Chi Minh City is our largest office in the country. A few years later, similar process to what happened in China actually, is some of the companies were looking beyond Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi and looking at alternatives in terms of availability of land, in terms of availability of labor, in terms of supply of raw materials. So we decided to open up a branch in Da Nang. Da Nang is good for us because it represents a very good and strong outsourcing center for all those services which perhaps we don't want to do in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City in terms of data computations and operating facilities which do not have to be really in tier 1 cities, but we can outsource to Da Nang. Looking at the future, the north of Vietnam is becoming quite interesting for us, and will not exclude us to make a move into one of the cities closer to China in the near future.
What initial market or local challenges did you encounter, and how did you address those in the years following initial setup?
That's an interesting question. There were lots of challenges. Obviously, Vietnam back then reminded me a lot of China in the late 80s and early 90s. So you could feel the excitement about being welcome as a foreign company. But I guess the first question would be where to go. Vietnam is so long as far as geography is concerned, and the major cities of Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, they're so far apart, one in the north and one in the south. So how to bridge and provide a better alternative to our clients who were looking at investing in Vietnam. So back then, the first thing we did was to set up a business intelligence unit or a market research team to do all that analysis and look at all the industrial parks and see where to best invest in terms of access to resources and what the variables for our clients would be, and provide the best solution for them. Now, this is now morphed into a larger team, which is looking at where to go beyond China. And obviously, we've added other territories to the ground they're covered. And the marketing intelligence team is a success story of the firm as well. In terms of other challenges, I think the local supporting industry and the supply chain or the extended supply chain wasn't really there, other than specific sectors like motorcycles, for example, where you could have a motorcycle entirely made with components in or from Vietnam. So most of our clients were looking at some vertical manufacturing integrations, but they could not really rely on local suppliers because there weren't any. So there were lots of logistics nightmares in terms of bringing in raw materials for China, which is still the case. However, now the logistics has been streamlined quite greatly. But back then, that was certainly an issue. Recruitment, training local workers on new processes, on more high-tech processes that they were used to back in the days. I think that was a challenge as well. Efficiency, obviously, you can't get much efficiency in these regards. Vietnam is perhaps a bit different from China in terms of getting the efficiency out of your workers in terms of processes. So I think that was indeed a challenge as well. But I think our clients knew that they had to factor that in, and they started to do lots of cross-country trainings and awareness. So I think in the end, our clients are pretty happy with what they have achieved in Vietnam right now.
And certainly over time, some of these efficiency aspects have certainly changed as the country has developed. Bringing us forward in the story to today, how do you see Vietnam's situation and outlook from your perspective as managing partner of Dezan Shira's global operations?
I've recently read quite a few articles about comparing Vietnam to certain cities in China. Recently, there was an interesting piece on comparing Vietnam to Shenzhen, for example, mentioning the fact that Vietnam's export now are bigger than Shenzhen export. So comparing one country to one city, which doesn't really make sense to me. If you were comparing something, perhaps you could look at Vietnam and one of the regions of China. And for those interested in statistics, Vietnam has pretty much the same GDP as Quang Tri province, right? Bordering Vietnam. Quang Tri province has double as much GDP per capita than Vietnam. So if you look at that, then you can perhaps have an idea of what to compare with. Having said that, I think Vietnam has been doing great in terms of leveraging to that development of this new supply chain moving out of China, not shutting down China, but expanding into Vietnam in terms of adding capacity. So I think in this regard, Vietnam is not really going to be replacing China. It can be, but would provide a very nice complement to China in terms of having one operation in China, perhaps for the local markets, and then having additional operations for other markets outside China. So we're seeing this as a trend with quite a few of our manufacturing clients. Vietnam also still greatly welcome foreign companies. I think China now is a bit choosy about which sectors they want. Vietnam is not there yet, although perhaps we'll soon get there as well. Still has very, very interesting policies about benefits, incentives for investing into the country. So I think complementing really each other is the solution going forward for all those companies interested in nearshoring, this new term which has come upstream recently, not really moving back or reshoring, but looking at something which can complement your China operations. Of course, Vietnam's current advantages will not last forever, but as I mentioned before, we have our business intelligence teams telling us where we should go next.
Thank you very, very much. You mentioned earlier that I believe your colleague Filippo, I will have Filippo Bortoletti on as well to give a few comments about Vietnam. Alberto, thank you very much for these insights. You've got a lot of experience in this market and really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Welcome, Filippo. Thank you for making the time to speak with us today. As Director of Vietnam Operations and having been on the ground with Dezan Shira Vietnam for the past 5 years, can you tell us about the team and the operations there?
Hi, Gary. So to answer you, I had the opportunity to join Dezan Shira in 2017, and I saw this company and Vietnam growing together basically since I arrived. And indeed, like Vietnam, DSA in these 5 years has grown steadily, serving an increasing number of foreign clients in Vietnam from all around the globe. And now we count about 60 professionals on the ground spread across 3 offices who are able to assist foreign investors along the whole investment cycle. This means that we are well equipped to advise on feasibility, market studies, business matching, location advisory, recruiting, entry strategies. And then we have a very capable team of lawyers able to advise and help clients navigating the nuances of the local legal framework, establishing their companies seamlessly and conduct then their businesses. Also, we can hold our clients' hand even after the investing phase. It means that we are fully equipped to make sure that our clients can focus on their business while we can deal with 𝐟𝐺𝐭 compliance with the strict local accounting and tax requirements. I think that some of our strengths are having a good and responsible team of professionals which are communicating and sharing experiences with colleagues from different parts of the world, but also with a wide network of partners on the ground. And we support each other basically for the greater good, as everyone here can recognize the enormous potential of Vietnam. The last 2 years, the pandemic was tough for everyone. I mean, also in Vietnam, especially for a firm like us who works with foreign investors. But we are ambitious. We have just moved our office in Ho Chi Minh City from District 3 to the more central District 1. And we are also moving to a new and bigger office in Da Nang by the end of May. And also probably more moves will follow in the near future. We are also embracing the changes COVID firstly imposed and then suggested, Therefore, we want to give our colleagues more flexibility. We want to further digitalize our services. And also, we want to gradually expand into new business lines, such as IT supporting services that are like ERP customization for our foreign clients, as we want to continue to be a key point of contact for them in Vietnam. And we would like to provide them with as much value as they need and deserve.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Just coming out of COVID, of course, is benefiting a lot of ASEAN, Vietnam included. Filippo, could you share some details about what Vietnam is like as an investment destination now and going forward?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I have to admit that I feel extremely privileged being in Vietnam at this point in time. It's really exciting, thrilling to be part of the change and see this country growing so ambitiously fast. I feel like that it's like being at the center of the world right now. If we consider like Asia and Southeast Asia, the current engine of economic growth, I honestly think that Vietnam is the brightest gem amongst all the Asian countries. If you think about it, Vietnam has been growing steadily for the last at least 20 years, or as far as I can remember, at least. It was one of the few countries, if not the only country, to register a growth in its GDP during the 2020-2021 pandemic period. And if we look at the details, first of all, is currently an economy that is mostly based on exports, okay, which are mostly done by foreign enterprises. But also the domestic market is extremely promising because the middle class that now counts more than 33 million citizens is increasing its purchasing power. Actually, the purchasing power is skyrocketing. I mean, in the next few years, like up to 2030, will like more than double. And by 2050, that some forecasts say that they will become as rich as Italian citizens. And I'm Italian, so I know that that there is a huge opportunity. Okay. Apart from this, like amongst the many key factors that influenced and foster Vietnam growth, okay, there are surely first the increasing openness to investment and trade by the local government. And indeed, Vietnam is a signatory party of several free trade agreements, as well as double taxation agreements, but not only, also like agreements on IPR protection, for example, okay? And these renders Vietnam a very appealing country to be used as a manufacturing and logistic hub, but also for transferring technology and capabilities and produce something innovative in the country potentially, okay? Also, if we couple these with the huge investment that Vietnam did in the infrastructure, especially in the logistics infrastructure, okay, then you can see that all these and also like very, very favorable tax incentives, like there are tax holidays that are, in my experience of professional, I never saw in any other country. There are some specific areas in Vietnam where you can benefit from 15 years of tax holiday. And if we consider the whole 15-year period, the corporate income tax rate average is 4.35%. I challenge you to find another country that provides this kind of incentive, okay? So for all these reasons, Vietnam was able to accommodate and develop a local supply chain, okay, with an increasing number of players, both foreign players and local players that are also active in the supporting industries, okay? So we have supporting industry, logistics, tax incentives. I mean, right now is possible for vessels from Vietnam to go directly to the United States without do the transshipment to Singapore, for example. So you have less costs, you have less time spent. Is very, very convenient. So the fact that you can find a country that is growing a lot economically, they have also very ambitious people, because they strive also to get richer. Okay? They are very well motivated. They are very productive. You have a stable government. I honestly think that if the condition remain the same, I'm very lucky being in Vietnam, and I would advise anyone to at least consider it. Then, of course, you know, it's not easy to invest in a country that is far away, but that's when Dezan Shira and Associate kicks in, because we are here on the ground and we can provide a full range of services. Therefore, you can have one interlocutor that deals with everything. So it's simplified quite a lot.
Thank you very much. It's very clear how passionate you are and optimistic about Vietnam's strong points. I think it was a very informative session. Thank you very much for making the time to speak with us today.
It was a pleasure, Gary. Thank you for giving me the time.
Steve Morris. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Ping Golf. I've been based in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and Thailand. Over the past 20, 25 years, I've had the privilege of being associated with Dezan Shira, and from a setting up of wholly foreign-owned enterprises to setting up rep offices to managing bookkeeping, accounting, payroll, back office support functions. I honestly can think of no better organization, and I've worked with Price Waterhouse, Deloitte & Touche, many of the large Big 8 accounting firms, and entities that, quotes, think that they specialize in Asia. Candidly speaking, Dezan Shira takes the risk and manages it for me, and I do is mitigate risk. What they're really selling and marketing is trust and confidence and credibility. In my 20+ years of working with Dezan Shira, I can honestly say that I've never had one instance of misdirection, misalignment, or surprises. And I do not own Ping. Everybody reports to someone. I'm a chief operating officer. I happen to report into folks. It's a privately held company, Ping. So I report into the chief financial officer. And all he wants is home runs. All he wants is success. All he wants is operations to run smooth. Dezan Shira serves as our accounting, bookkeeping, auditing firm, payroll. They've helped us, again, as I said, with rep offices and woofies. And I've never had a blip. I've never had one instance of misdirection or error. And so from my perspective, I've had 20+ years of positive experience with Dezan Shira, and I would highly recommend them. And I have recommended them to numerous clients. I know of no other firm that has the width, the breadth, the depth of expertise in multiple countries throughout Asia than Dezan Shira. So compliments to the Dezan Shira team. I rely on you wholeheartedly, and I trust you even more. Thank you.